Alright, what's good, fellas? So this will be the last episode of this Monster Sanctuary tier list. And the last role that we have to cover is the utility role, usually slot 2. This is the least important role on a team in a Master Bravery playthrough run. So, like, you could just have 2 damage dealers, 1 support, if that's what you roll for your available members. Or you could have 2 supports and 1 damage dealer, which is generally the safest way to play the game, but it is the slowest way to play the game. Or you could have like a utility member, and these monsters usually can fill a bunch of different roles, so they essentially have no purpose. Some are really good, and some are really bad. Like the first one, slime. This thing sucks. If this it gets access, like its healing tree is heal, and it has heal charger, which is arguably the better of the abilities that it gets. Its other ability is curse chain, I think, which just lets it, if it applies, when this monster applies a debuff, 35% chance to spread it to another monster. It's the same as the fungi one, but it's way better on the fungi, because the fungi will be applying debuffs. This one most likely won't be, like, this one won't be doing a whole lot. Like, it'll be clicking sorcery at some point in the beginning, and then maybe healing with its heal charging. So you're giving something like 5 to 6 stacks in the early game. This thing gets outscaled so fast and won't be getting used that it's trash. And its stats are so bad. Out of the slimes, it has the worst stats. It doesn't get anything useful until 20, so like Plague, I guess, is kind of useful if you have it with like a multi-poisoner, which this doesn't get multi-poison, so. And like multi-armor break, which is whatever. So this is garbage. So we're gonna put it in D tier. We're not even gonna worry about it. So then we get Grummy. Grummy is kind of similar. I mean, Grummy is also kind of pointless, because if you do roll this for whatever reason, you're probably gonna be switching it to Garulu. It does get shield, which is cool, but unfortunately, it doesn't have high defense, so it's not the best shield setter. You can probably make it so it does have high defense, but it also gets restoring shield, so it can get rid of debuffs. It gets like sheltered, which is cool, weapon break, which is actually pretty good, weakness, proliferate, remunerate, shared regen, and multi-regen, which is pretty good. It gets mid-game aging, which is cool. It gets eons, which is really good. But it doesn't do a lot of damage, and it doesn't have a lot of bulk, so its main purposes are going to be like maybe an additional shield setter, or a primary shield setter if this is what you are given, and a restoring shielder. So that alone probably will put it in like C tier, right? Just because its stats aren't great. But if you do get a Grummy, chances are as soon as you get to the forest, you're going to want to upgrade it, because this thing's stats are better, considerably better. It gets like all the same stuff as Grummy, like, but this thing will be attacking, just because like it'll be attacking and it'll be clicking Mass Restore in the early, mid, and possibly late game. So it doesn't get rid of as many debuffs, but it kind of helps. And its shifted abilities are Debuff Mastery, which usually I take. But the other one is Curse Resistance, which is okay, I guess. It basically makes it so 25% of the time you don't get debuffs put on you when they're supposed to get debuffs put on you. So I don't know, it just basically you're just going to be unhappy about taking this ability 75% of the time. So whatever, I like this one more. But it's got aging. Aging on this monster is obviously better than on Grummy because it's just a little bit bulkier. It's got Eons as well for the mid game. Warlock healing, which is kind of nice, just because it applies to like all of the regen that this applies. So you got multi-regen plus Warlock healing is pretty good. It gets access to like single target fire, single target water, which is cool. And yeah, and it does get single target restore. So if you'd rather take the single target restore over the multi-acid tempest, which is perfectly viable, and early multi-armor break, which is pretty good, and its typing is good. It's better than the Grummy. The Grummy I think is weak to fire, strong to water. This is weak to wind, strong to water, which is better. So yeah, this is obviously gonna go A tier. And then Toxicus. So a seahorse that is got pretty good typing, right? We're never going to be unhappy about this typing. Weak to wind is good, usually. This thing pretty much does one thing, right? So this is like a weird monster where you actually will want to take multi-target skills. I mean, you'll still skill the single target slime shot for when it needs to get used. But you will take Center of Mass, and then you will take Slime Volley plus Gale. Plus, I gave this thing heal charging, which is not very good. Heal charging does apply to the supply healing it gives, but really what you want on this thing is debuff mastery, because this thing gets a lot of its kit is built around poisoning enemies. So it gets, in the early game, it gets toxic feedback, right? And it gets symbiosis. So you're getting 5 mana back for every toxic, or for every time enemy takes poison damage, and you have a way of multi-applying poison, and you have plague. So whenever an enemy takes poison damage, it's 40% chance that it spreads to another enemy. So you stack like just a couple poison procs, and then after one turn, everyone's sitting on 2 poison procs, and unfortunately it doesn't get max multi-poison. So in the early game, its maximum is stacking 2 poison procs, and then it gets toxic support, which then means it can apply 3 poison procs. And plus, like, every heal, like, it gets multi-sidekick, it gets heal mastery, it gets supply, so it has, like, a lot of ways of passive healing. It has great mana sustain, and then in the mid-game it gets double mana symbiosis. So this thing requires no mana. No mana regen, at least. You can add a ribbon, which gives health and mana. So you're just stacking health, that's pretty much it. You'll stack like a little bit of mana just so that it can actually use its abilities. And then its mana regen is completely covered by itself. And that's pretty much it. So it's similar to fungi. It's just better than fungi because it does more damage. And it has more health, so the poison does a little bit more damage. And its typing is better. So fungi, in the carry section, we put fungi in the B tier, I think. This one we will probably put bottom of A tier or top of B tier, for the same reason that fungi is. It is just a little bit better than fungi. And it also has access to wind attacks, which fungi doesn't. So yeah. The next one is Beetleoid. Beetleoid could have very well have been a support, just a pure support, because it's a shielder. I forgot to add this in the support section. So this is pretty much a support. It gets shield, it gets multi-sorcery, it gets mana symbiosis, but why does it get mana symbiosis? I don't quite know. I guess, yeah, I'm not really sure. It's not the best user of mana symbiosis. Mana symbiosis is fantastic, but it's not getting a lot of passive healing by any way. I mean, yeah, not until like, I mean, he gets transfusion late game, but it's late game. So whatever. So you might click a buff here and there, and then the problem with this monster is it gets access to one damage type, and that's wind, which is not good. So it's pretty much, if it's going to attack, it's going to click charge beam. It's probably mostly going to be clicking shield, and it might click a buff here and there. And it does get charge amplifier, so all charge stacks are stronger. It does get revenge in the mid game, which is cool. And for its ability, I have the worst of the two. Its shadow ability is Mana Conflux, which is not very good. But its other ability is very good, and that is Leadership. That right there is fantastic. Whenever this monster gains a charge stack, shares it with another monster in your party. So right away, this monster holds incredible value if another monster that you have available makes really good use of charge stacks, like, you know, the Grasshopper or the Praying Mantis or the Phoenix, or anybody with charged up, or anybody that wants charge stacks, like the Goblin Pilot wants charge stacks, the Pterodile, the worm, the ancient worm, wants charge stacks. So this is actually a really good support. Unfortunately, I forgot it in the support section. But either way, its typing is pretty decent. It is strong to wind, weak to earth. We like that. We like being weak to either earth or wind. So I'm going to throw it in S tier. This thing is great just as a shield setter and as a way to spread charge stacks. Fantastic. Yeah. Druid Oak. So this monster is not great. I mean, he gets multi-weakness early game, right? Plus weaken, so he's probably like clicking, he gets water and earth attacks. That's pretty much it. I mean, he gets multi-regen, which is like okay. He gets life wave, which might be okay. Team Motivate is pretty good in the mid game. He gets aging in the mid game, which is whatever. He's not doing the most damage. I take the light shift one, which does, it's like Eternal Heart, because it gives him damage. It gives him the most damage stats. The other one, I think, I don't remember what the other shifted ability is. It's probably not that good. It's Curse Chain, which is not that good in my opinion. So yeah, but just like multi-weakness is kind of okay. It's worth having in the early game if this is your only option. Doesn't make him terrible. Mid game, he pretty much has no utility. All of this monster's utility is in restoration. If this monster got restoration in the early game, he would be probably in the S tier. But because he doesn't get access to his best passive ability until 30, he loses a ton of utility in the mid game. Like in the mid game, he could be clicking Life Wave plus Bolster, maybe. So he's giving at least some buffs, plus some healing, plus maybe adding some weakness and armor break to the enemies. But is that good enough to justify using? Probably not. You probably won't be using this monster. And if you're forced to use this monster in the beginning, the chances are you will very rapidly be switching this monster out in the mid-game. Or like even like by the time you get to the Blue Caves or the Forest or wherever. So we'll put him top of C tier, but yeah, I can't really justify giving him much better than that. Goblin Warlock. So this monster is a goblin, so he's weak to physical, strong to magic, which surprisingly isn't that bad. He will probably get deleted though at some point, just because they usually do, unless they're super bulky, which he is not. He gets multi-barrier in the early game, which is cool. He gives himself increased mana regen and a random buff. Obviously, this is better if you have more goblins. But he gets Mass Restore, which is why he's in the utility section. He gets like multi-poison, toxic reaction, which is pretty good, I guess. And again, this is sort of a monster where I probably would be using him for applying debuff purposes. So I would be probably taking the multi-target skills. But then again, it's always safer just to take the single target skills in master difficulty. So lightning bolt, poison bomb. But really, what is this monster doing? He's clicking Mass Restore. Probably always. And maybe he can fit this buff in at some point. He gets one of the best abilities in the game, Occult Power, but that's not until the late game, so it doesn't really matter. But, yeah. So, and he gets Aging, which is cool, but I don't know if it really matters on this guy. So he's got Warlock Healing for the mid-game. Plus, he's got Sidekick support, so once he has Sidekick, then all of his heals are just doing more heals. So, that's cool. So he's not bad, and he's not bad. He's got good, debuff application purposes, good healing and debuff removal applications. Let's see what his other one is. His other one is Mana Conflux, so both of these are pretty generically bad, I would say. I would probably just take Supremacy because it gives him more bulk. That's probably what I would do. And it just gives other monsters other ways of getting charge stacks, which usually is better. So let's go ahead and place him. Let's put him in the B tier, because he's pretty useful. He'll probably stay like top of B tier or something. Seems about right. Okay, so now we have the Ice Blob. Ice Blob is fantastic. I'm just going to say it right there. Congeal, multi-chill, early game, plus restoring shield. That's it. We don't really need to even talk past this point. But just these two alone in the early game, this is the only monster to get access to both Congeal and Multi-Chill in the early game. Plus his magic stat is really high. So his Congeal damage, I think, is really high. It's over. It's S tier. We don't really... Plus, in the mid-game, his role sort of switches to becoming more of a supporting role because he gets Ice Shield, so he will be clicking Ice Shield probably in your first slot. And he gets like Copy Shield and Shield Aura plus combo shielding. Plus he has ways of removing debuffs. And then he also gets access to this, which is kind of cool. This is really cool because it just prevents enemies from healing effectively for taking chill damage or congeal damage, which they will be taking. So yeah, there's really nothing to talk about. Plus his stats are good enough that he gets like water damage, neutral damage, and wind damage access, which is fantastic. And if you're going to weave an attack in, you could probably weave in Ice Storm. Plus in the mid game he gets weakened, but I don't know. I mean, he won't be attacking that much. He'll mostly, in the mid game, he'll mostly be clicking Ice Shield and possibly Restoring Shield if debuffs need to get removed. But it doesn't matter. This is so far the best monster out of what we have just discussed. I didn't even talk about his abilities. Oh, it's Light Instinct, so he just takes less damage. So he's just harder to remove. His bulk isn't good, but honestly that doesn't really matter. In this case I make an exception just because of his skill access is so incredibly good and effective that who cares. Plus Sub-Zero, right? So it's just 10% addition on chilled enemies. That's fantastic. Aurum Tail is next. This monster is... I used to dislike it, but like it's strong to magic, weak to physical, whatever, doesn't really matter. But this is another monster where I forgot it for the support section. This is predominantly probably a support. But it gets shield. You will probably be clicking shield on this most of the time, but why this monster is very, very valuable in the early game and beyond even is because of this glitter. This is the only monster in the game to get access to glitter early game, and for each instance of gold sense in the party, every monster deals 6% more damage and receives 6% less damage, and it stacks additively. So in the early game, this monster gets access to 12% damage increase and 12% damage reduction for the whole party, which is just so valuable. And then generally they become less and less valuable because as the game, like, there's obviously diminishing returns on the way damage reduction works, but for the way damage addition works, there's not diminishing returns. So you're getting, by like the mid game, you're getting with this monster alone, you're getting 18% like damage addition, and then you're probably getting somewhere between like 5 and 10% damage reduction by the mid game, which is still very good. But 18% like damage increase is insane for the whole party. That is busted. Plus it gets like overcast, double overcast, so its shields are very big with double overcast. And then I mean, I took Soul Beam. This is not generally what you take. Same with Gale. You generally take Whirlwind on this plus Gemstone Rain because they have more hits. This monster will probably very rarely be going last. Plus it gets like double or at least one transfuse in the mid game, which is nice. Plus it gets mana shield early game, plus copy shield, plus augment shield. Augment shield is like a sort of a low chance of giving a random buff for every shield you apply, but when you have mana shield and copy shield, so like it doesn't really work well with when you're just clicking shield. But when you're clicking an attack plus mana shield, you're getting 6 chances plus mana shield plus copy shield. So that's 6 times, like, so for the party of 3, you're getting 18 opportunities in the early game to apply a random buff at a 7.5% chance. So you have a great way of just passively applying buffs by attacking, which is why this monster is in the utility section rather than the pure support section, because if you have a pure support, this monster is better used by attacking with mana shield, copy shield, augment shield. So it has ways to and just by being in the party, it has freaking glitter, which is fantastic. Its abilities are Equipment Mastery, which is generally the one I take. I think the other one is Blacksmithing, which is also pretty valuable. But yeah, so Blacksmithing. So like, it's valuable. I just like Equipment Mastery because it gives it a little bit more base bulk, and giving it attack stat is completely irrelevant. So by taking Blacksmithing, you're giving it like more offensive stats, which isn't really the purpose of this monster. Purpose of this monster is sort of to be shielding, applying buffs, and stacking combo, which it does fantastically, and for that reason it's going to be probably above Beetleoid in the S tier. This thing performs so well, and it actually sticks around. It can tank physical hits, stick around. If you like stack defense and mana regen on that thing, because it has double overcast, it needs a lot of mana regen. It does a fantastic job. Okay, so next is Ninky. Ninky, same as Grummy. If you get this for some reason, you're probably not going to keep it very long. You're going to upgrade it to Ninky Naka, which, yeah, I don't even know if you can get these as the eggs in a random, like in a Bravery run. I think in general you might be getting just the upgraded version always. I don't know if I've ever gotten Ninky or Grummy, but I have gotten Grulu and I have gotten Ninky Nonka, so I don't know if the game is set to just give you the upgraded versions anyways. But yeah, and honestly, it doesn't really do a whole lot on its own. I'm gonna put it in D tier, but it is still better than slime. So if for some reason you are using this, it is still better than the slime. So that just goes to show you how bad the slime is. Okay, and here we go, Ninki Nanka. This monster is fantastic. So this monster you're probably gonna use a skill resetter right when you get it because it gets Mud Cannon instead of Slime Shot from the beginning. So unless, I don't know, unless you want Mud Cannon over Slime Shot, but I generally like Slime Shot, so I re-swap just to get that extra skill point back that gets automatically spent on Mud Cannon. It gets Fire, Water, and Earth access. The only problem this monster has is it's super greedy for skill points, right? This monster is the only monster in the game to get access to Restoration early game, and which basically means that, as I've said in the past, getting rid of debuffs is so valuable. So this monster, it's weird because in the early game, this monster will probably be in your second slot. Now it has access to like 3 different elemental types, which is nice. But the chances are you will probably be clicking regeneration 3 times before it does anything else, because every time someone gets healing from regeneration, 50% that a debuff is removed, which means like this monster just passively gets rid of debuffs just by applying multi-regen. And then in the mid game, it also gets multi-sidekick. Plus it has assistance, so every heal that comes from this monster has a 10% chance of applying sidekick, which means it's applying sidekick quite a lot. It also gets exploit, so when this monster is attacking, it's usually hitting an enemy for a weakness, which means it's getting a random buff plus a shield. And that is pretty much, it gets preparation, it gets mana symbiosis, which is fantastic in the mid game because then you don't really have to worry as much about mana regen on this monster because it gets a ton of mana. It gets a ton of mana back from all of its passive healing. So where does that put it? Well, this alone puts it into possibly the S tier. Just restoration alone, early game restoration, puts it in the S tier immediately. And this exploit puts it into, well, I mean, this is good, right? So it's good. All the passive healing plus mana symbiosis puts it up there. Like, those are both really good passives. It gets Empower, which is always nice. It gets Hunt, which is cool in the mid game. It gets Breaking Support, which is cool because this monster is always applying armor break because of all the regens that it has applied. So it can apply 2 stacks of armor break, which is not insignificant. And what is the last thing I was gonna say about this? Oh, you kind of can afford to put a little bit of crit on this thing. It's not doing the most damage. Like its stats are just pure like bulk and like it. I mean, it does. It's not. Its damage isn't terrible. So at some point, especially in the mid game, when you have other ways of applying regen without clicking the regeneration buff, because clicking buffs is generally kind of a waste of an action. You kind of want ways to passively apply buffs. But this monster, there's an illegal item that this monster does fantastically with. It's called a Reptilian Idol. Unfortunately, on this saved file, I don't have any of the illegal items because this was my first save file. So I won't be able to show you, but it's an accessory and it gives 2 random buffs and it has no drawbacks. It gives like crit chance, it gives health, and it just applies 2 random buffs at the start of every turn. But it can only be used by reptile monsters. This is a reptile monster and it does fantastically. And the reason it does so fantastically with that is because So I have Overheal. Overheal is probably not great on this monster. I don't think it's as good as the other one. It gives more base stats, but its other shifted ability is called Enlightened. And with Reptilian Idol, this thing is getting buffs, and it is 55% chance sharing those buffs. It gets more like bulk, so it's sticking around for longer. It gets slightly less damage, but that doesn't matter when you have the utility of spreading buffs among your teammates. So yeah, it's just not even close. This monster is I would argue probably up there equal to Slime, just as far as utility. Well, as far as utility goes, it's better than Slime, but as far as applying damage, it's not as good as Slime. And Slime can apply shield, this can only apply healing, which generally is worse. But it's passively getting rid of debuff. I mean, it's top of S tier, so that's all we needed to know. We can carry on. Oh, and I didn't even talk about its typing. Its typing is fantastic. So it's strong to magic, great, and then it's only weak to fire and wind. So it's only weak to physical fire and physical wind damage, which is great. That is so good. Plus it can tank those hands down because of how bulky it is, regardless. So yeah, next one is Vasuki. The Cobra, this kind of doesn't really do a whole lot, but it does. The reason it's a utility is because most of the time it's clicking Mass Restore, and it has hexing support, so it can apply like random debuffs every time it does an attack, which most of the time it will not be attacking. And then in the mid game, it has Fire Shield. It does get Taunt, but I would not. This monster isn't the bulkiest. And I've already talked about how bad Taunt is, so unless you want this thing just to die, this thing has a lot of utility, so unlike the Blowfish, you don't really want this thing to die, because it has Fire Shield, and it has healing, and if this is your second slot monster, it also has like passive Fatal Upkeep for the mid game. So in the mid game, this thing has a lot of utility. It has a lot of purpose in your team. It doesn't do a lot of damage, even though its stat spread is mostly lends it to being a damage dealer. I almost wish that its health and shielding were swapped with its attack and magic, but they're not. So unfortunately, it is not as bulky as you would like it to be for like a utility support. But it still does. It adds a lot of value in a lot of cases. So we'll put it like probably above, yeah, probably above the Goblin Warlock. And then in the late game, this will be, it's usually when they have a passive that's worth talking about post 30. I'm gonna talk about it, but it gets Acid Spit, which just means that it can apply an additional burn and an additional poison, which it does apply, which is okay. And it gets Poison Nerves, which doesn't really do a whole lot, but it's okay. And it gets Cursed Chain, and the other one is Eternal Heart. Both are viable. Eternal Heart makes it bulkier. Cursed Chain just makes it so... Honestly, Eternal Heart is probably better for most of the game, because you want this thing to be bulky and just click Mass Restores. That's pretty much it. So yeah, the top of B tier for sure. The next is Psycho Phantom. Psycho Phantom, the elephant, the smoked elephant. He sort of is a damage dealer, but the reason I've got him in utility is because he has Restore. And yeah, so, and he has Smoke Screen. So when he's clicking Restore, or if he clicks a buff, he is applying Blind on all enemies, which is pretty good. But then in the mid game, he also gets like Cleanse plus Shadow Grasp. So I mean, like, in the early game, he's probably just going to be a way of getting rid of debuffs on a single target. But outside of that, in the mid-game starts, he will probably just be like a cleanser. Like, just a way to, like, cleanse buffs off of enemies. And he will probably only be clicking Shadow Grasp. because I think it is his strongest ability. Yeah, it is, sort of. I mean, Snowveil's not bad, but that's pretty much all this monster does. Yeah, so he's not great. Also, his typing's not great. And he gets Shadow proc for like an extra hit or an extra heal, which is probably the better of his two abilities. His other one, I mean, we can check it out real quick. I don't remember. What? No. We'll switch stone him. Psycho Phanta. His other one is Holy Presence, which is actually actually that's probably his better one. That's probably his better ability. Yeah. If you have any ways of actually, yeah, no, Holy Presence is just always better. So because he has Holy Presence, in fact, we're just gonna bump him up like a full tier because that ability is so good. So I was gonna put him in the B tier just because his typing is not great. He's weak to fire, strong to wind. That's not ideal, but he has Holy Presence, he has heal, debuff removals, and he has cleanse and blind applications. So we're gonna put him in the bottom of A tier probably, just because of Holy Presence, really. Otherwise, he'd be going like the top of C tier or the bottom of... Actually, no. We're going to put him top of B tier. No, in fact, we're going to put him below the Fire Snake, just because he really doesn't have supporting capabilities. Like, being a cleanser and a buff spreader is cool, but it doesn't put him above the Cobra. Yeah. In fact, honestly, I'm going to put the Cobra up here, and I'm going to put the Seahorse down here. Just because the Seahorse is good, and sometimes whittling down monsters via poison is the best way to get rid of them, but yeah, yeah, I'm not sure. Doesn't really matter. He's in the B tier. Next is the Koi Fish. The Koi Fish is terrible. I'm just gonna outright say it. Like, he gets Center of Mass, but you're very rarely gonna take Center of Mass unless you're taking it for the healing, in which case then Center of Mass is pretty good. But he gets like critical hit, he gets evasion, critical healing, Center of Mass, and then he also gets... No, he doesn't. Oh, he also gets critical boon. So what is this monster doing? He's clicking Mass Restore and hoping and fishing for ways to apply buffs on enemies. Not buffs on enemies, buffs on allies. So by clicking Mass Restore, he can critically heal, and then by critically healing, he can critical boon and hopefully get random buffs on your monsters. And then every time he's applying a buff on a monster, he can apply 2 charge stacks, which is cool. And then he also gets like healing shield and stuff, plus evasion. So you are gonna want to build him like sort of crit and bulk, just crit and bulk. Shadow proc, which is nice. I actually think his other ability is better, and I think it's also Holy Presence. And it is. So you're gonna want to take Holy Presence every time, and you're just gonna want to spam healing and buffing. So yeah. So, and his typing is good. It's better than the Psycho Phantom because he's strong to water and he's weak to wind. So right away he's better than Psycho Phantom, right? So he's just gonna instantly get put in the A tier. He's almost identical to Psycho Phantom, except he has multi-target healing. Psycho Phantom only has single-target healing. So that sort of makes him, like, Center of Mass healing is pretty good. The next one is the Miner. The Miner, I'll be honest, I don't even know why I have him in the utility section. This monster isn't great. Like, he's not great. So his abilities are Debuff Mastery, which is not good in my opinion. And his other one is Divine Shield, which is also not good. So yeah, so what does he do? Let's see. Early game, he is like passively maybe applying armor break on enemies, and Lava Wave is trash. Lava Rush is good for the mid game. He's got Coal Toss plus Mystify plus Saboteur Shield plus Copy Shield, which is whatever. Armor Shred plus Burrow, whatever. He's not doing a whole lot. Basically, he's clicking Forge. Like once mid game comes around, this monster is just an additional shield setter, and he's clicking Forge. And if anyone has burn on them, he can click Lava Rush. That is pretty much it. His typing is whatever. His abilities are whatever. Like Debuff Mastery is pretty generic, and the other one is also very generic. And his stats are pretty mid, so he's basically not good. We're gonna put him like, yeah, I guess Grummy should just go down here just by nature of probably getting evolved. Actually, no, Grummy's still better. Grummy still is better than this monster. Yeah, that's that. Okay, next one is Draco Nov. So this is sort of the most supporting of the dragons, I think. But his supporting capabilities kind of suck. So I would take Blacksmithing on this guy. The other one is Equipment Mastery, which the only damage he gets access to is neutral damage, so whatever. In the early game, he's like clicking buffs, I guess. Maybe he might click like Claws or Spectral Flame, whatever. He's pretty bulky, so he's difficult to remove, which is nice, I guess. He's got pretty good like buff application, like, or not even really. I don't know. It's difficult to, like, it's always hard to justify having a monster that is just clicking buffs, because it is effectively doing nothing, and you want to passively be applying buffs, not actively be applying buffs. And then he gets Helping Hand, which doesn't get rid of debuffs, it applies one buff. It's not really that good. So, I mean, what is this monster doing? In the mid game, he's clicking Forge, and he's probably attacking, and he might be clicking buffs or Sidekick or Helping Hand. That's not good enough. His typing is fantastic. Like, his typing is so good. Like, resisting neutral and resisting status, and in exchange for being weak to physical is like, I think that's fantastic. Plus being bulky, so like, doesn't really matter. But unfortunately, the monster does effectively nothing. But he is still better than every single one of these. So we'll put him top of C tier. Because you could, honestly, you could just have that monster as like a neutral carry and just clicking Claws. And he'll probably do okay. But yeah. Because his damage isn't like, I mean, his damage is pretty bad. But yeah, mainly it's just for his bulk. So he's gonna click around. His purpose, I think his purpose in like PvP is to click buffs. So, and most of the time when you're fighting against this monster, it is usually the monster going first and clicking buffs. So, whatever. This monster is awesome. So, like, let's just take a look real quick. What does this monster have access to? Cleanse right away, fantastic. He gets access to early punishment, which is kind of cool. And he gets access to like a multi-hitting move, which is nice for cleansing and stuff. Wind Allegiance, which is nice. He can like apply Chill. He's got Copy Shield, and I think he gets Mana Shield. Oh, he doesn't get Mana Shield till mid-game, but whatever. But what does he have? He gets access to Evasion, so right away you're thinking, okay, so we need to build this monster to be like a crit. Like, to be crit. Yes, you do. Because every time this monster attacks, he has a 50% on critical hit, 50% chance to grant random buffs to monsters. That's fantastic. And then critical edge, whatever. Critical current, you probably take this just because of critical boon. Armor bypass really doesn't matter on this monster because it's doing no damage. Like this monster, if you're using this monster as a damage dealer, you're in trouble. This monster is a cleanser and a buff spreader. And that alone makes this monster very useful as like a second slot. And also in the mid game, it gets access to this. So every time it's applying a buff to any monster in any way, it is removing debuffs. So right away, it's like, what is this monster doing? He's applying buffs, and he's got double combo buffing in mid game. So he's applying a lot of buffs every time he's getting like critical boon proccing. Or you can just click the buffs, which is also perfectly valid. He's cleansing, and he's getting rid of debuffs while he's applying buffs. So, like, it's ridiculous. This monster is so valuable to have. It's just, unfortunately, he gets slapped by debuffs. So you're gonna have to stack crit chance on him. You're gonna have to stack health, and you will need to stack mana regen on this monster because you just will. Yeah. And he also does no damage, but obviously his purpose isn't to do damage, it's to do everything else. And his typing is fantastic. His typing, he's strong to water, weak to earth. That's cool. He's got Utopia. I don't think either of his abilities are really that good. His other one is Mana Conflux, which is, yeah, so you're always going to want to take Utopia, because at least Utopia applies to everyone. Mana Conflux only applies to this monster. This monster's not doing a lot of damage anyway, so you'd rather be applying charge stacks for everyone. So he's pretty good. He serves a lot of utility for the party. He just does no damage. I'm going to put him in A tier because of the reason that he's applying buffs, he's removing debuffs from your party, and he's removing buffs from their party. And all he's doing is just attacking. So he is adding damage effectively while doing other things. And he's adding to your combo count as like a second slot. So that's cool. Next is Oculus. Oculus, I don't know why I have this in the utility. This probably should have been in the carry section, because unless you're very rarely going to be clicking Encapsulate, you're never going to want to take and Protect. And Encapsulate, maybe at some point you'll click it, whatever. This whole tree I generally ignore. This monster is like the opposite of being greedy for skill points. Even Spark Shower is such a weak skill that I don't generally take it. I mean, you will take it just because it's guaranteed damage, it can't be dodged. But really, in the early game, you're clicking Slime Shot most of the time. And when you get to the mid game, this thing is just clicking Sticky Webs. Sticky Webs, or no, sorry, not even Slime Shot. He's clicking Sticky Treads. So most of the early game, mid game, and late game, this monster is clicking Sticky Treads, unless something's weak to earth or weak to fire. Although even if it is weak to fire, I still think Sticky Treads does more damage than Spark Shower. But whatever. His typing is good. He's strong to fire, weak to wind. Yeah. I mean, like as a carry, he's pretty weak because his damage is kind of weak. He's pretty bulky. I almost wish he got access to shield setting and like fire shield. Unfortunately, he doesn't. So whatever. But he gets Hex, which is nice. He gets Electrify, which is cool. He gets Blinding Sparks, which is really good for just applying blind passively, which is nice. Because this monster, I have leadership on here. I don't know why you would ever want to take leadership on this thing. This monster is good because it has debuff mastery. So generally I take debuff mastery. It gets a little bit more damage. which is nice. So you shift it to dark, you take debuff mastery, and you're just, with Hex, you're just spamming sticky treads for like basically the entire game. And that's what it does. And it has good typing, it's got good bulk, and it could go last, it could go second, but chances are it'll probably be going last. And so as a damage dealer, is it doing enough damage to justify going last? Not really. Not really, but it is bulky, so I mean that helps. That helps arguing to put it like in the bottom of the B tier pretty much, because it's doing more than any of these, but it's arguably doing less than all three of these. So yeah, we'll go bottom of B, or bottom of, yeah, B tier. That seems fine. Next is Stolby. Stolby's fantastic. So, like, what is it doing? It has restore access. It also has healing wave access. So mass restore plus warlock healing. That's fantastic. Plus anti-curse, which is also nice. It's resistant to curse and earth, which pretty much doesn't really add a whole lot. I mean, resistance to debuffs is nice. Weakness to physical is not great. It's not really that bulky, and its magic attack is pretty okay. So most of the time this thing will be clicking healing, and then it also gets access to Gemstone Rain if you're trying to generate like a higher combo count. Or if you're trying... Oh, it gets Light Instinct too, so that's a fantastic ability, so it does help its bulk quite considerably. But when this thing attacks, it's going to want to click Poison Cloud. It clicks Poison Cloud, it's got Mana Siphon, which is nice for getting mana back. It's got Plague, which is really good for just applying poison. It gets like dodging, which is cool. It gets Mentor, which puts more value in grabbing Restore over Mass Restore. Restore also gets rid of more debuffs. So maybe like you might just consider taking both Mass Restore and Restore, which is generally not usually done when you're taking multiple things in a skill tree, like multiple required skill trees, or multiple required skills in a skill tree. In exchange for like maybe you're taking nothing from this skill tree and probably nothing from this skill tree after you grab Toxin. You're gonna grab Toxin early. Toxin plus Gemstone Rain is cool. And then like multi-poison by the mid-game plus Plague plus Mana Siphon, that's fantastic. So Light Instinct plus multi-poison, Plague, Mana Siphon plus healing access and debuff removing access and warlock healing, that's super good. High value in that. We're slapping this in A tier. It's just, yeah, it's pretty. In fact, I think it's better than all of these, just because of its ability to, like, it basically does what this guy is doing, applying poison, which is sometimes the best way to remove enemies. But unlike this guy, who has like passive healing and stuff, which is nice, she has active healing, but she can also get rid of debuffs, which I think is probably nicer than passive healing without the ability to get rid of debuffs. But her only damaging type is Earth. I mean, she gets neutral, but the chances of taking the neutral tree is pretty slim to none. Like, you're never going to be clicking Spectral Flame on this. If you do skill Spectral Flame, it's only to grab dodging later in the game, just to give it a little bit of extra bulk. But yeah, so it's good. I mean, it does perfectly valid job in what its purpose is. Shock Hopper. So the Penguin. The Penguin is, first we'll talk about the typing. The typing is terrible. So like, I hate the double weakness things. Like double weakness in exchange for double resistance. I dislike that. I would almost prefer for it to be like strong to win, or strong to wind, strong to water, in exchange for being weak to like physical. But in this case, it is what it is. Like, it makes sense, right? Like, it's a bird. It's an Arctic bird. It's obviously going to be weak to fire and weak to ground, because it's never seen either of those two things in its life. So, the Curse Breaker is nice. For the early game, it generally falls off. It gets Mass Restore access, which is why it's in the utility section. And it gets Sonic Wave, and then in the mid game it gets Sonic Assault, which is probably what this thing is clicking. This thing is pretty skill point greedy. Like, you're not going to take Initial Shock or Initial Chill, although Initial Chill has more value than Initial Shock. You probably won't be taking Shocking Current or Chilling Cold, just because I'm rarely using its, like, any of its wind skills or its water skills. I'm very rarely using. Most of this monster's purpose is to heal, provide healing and debuff removal, and then when it does attack, it has auto restore, so it gets rid of 2 debuffs from the monster with the most, which is really nice. And it is fishing for applying weaknesses. And then in the mid game it also has auto heal, which is nice. So Sonic Assault in the mid game is a great way to do damage. Neutral is a great type to do damage with. And weakness is a great debuff to apply. And having the ability, by attacking with a decent attack, to also heal and remove debuffs is great, as well as just having access to Mass Restore plus hexing support is fantastic. The only thing, its stats are like not great. Its bulk is not great, and its weaknesses don't help its bulk at all. Its magic attack is pretty good. Curse removal, Curse Breaker is nice. I think its other one is Curse Chain, which doesn't have as much utility, in my opinion. Yeah, so Curse Chain, so it, like, if it applies a debuff, it has a chance of spreading that debuff, which is whatever. If you're actually using this monster as a debuff applier, then Curse Chain might actually be worth. But generally I use it as a healer and a debuff remover, and just fishing for weakness. Like, I just fish to apply weakness, and that's it. It does okay. It doesn't last a long time though. It will get targeted by something it's weak to and just delete it. So unfortunately for this monster, because of the reason of its weaknesses, I will put it at the top of C tier, because it does more than all of these. I don't think it does as much as any of these. So yeah, that's it. Mokus. Mokus is fantastic. So this monster, so first of all, I mean, its typing's not great. It's strong to earth, weak to neutral, which sucks, because this thing ends up taking a lot of damage from neutral attacks. You're never gonna take taunt on this, because you probably want this monster to stick around. This monster, in fact, this whole tree you're probably never gonna take. If you build this tree out in the mid game, it's gonna be for Protector and then for Hex Touch, and that's probably it, and maybe for the attack proc, and that's it. This monster is another case of, I want to be applying debuffs. So in this case, I probably would take Center of Mass, and I would take maybe Shadow Storm, although you could opt to just go Life Wave instead of Shadow Storms, whatever. It gets, in the mid game, it gets Supply, so like Warlock Healing isn't that good on this monster, because the chances of proccing Warlock Healing is not high, but maybe, who knows. But it gets multi-weakness in the early game. If that alone is fantastic. Multi-weakness plus, oh wait, oh yeah, no. So it just gets multi-weakness, and then it gets Curse of Weakness, which is kind of nice, actually. Curse of Weakness is great. So basically, what are you going to be doing? You're going to be clicking multi-target Spore Cloud, multi-target Shadow Storm, fishing for armor breaks or weaknesses or any other debuffs that you can get with the Curse of Weakness. Plus, it has like Demotivate. Just, you know, it's worth getting. It's a good buff. And that's pretty much it. So like, what? Is that good? No, not really. It's not that good. It doesn't have that much utility. Weakness is a great debuff, but as far as, like, I still don't even think it's as good as Shockhopper. Like, you're probably gonna really have to be forced to use this thing if you're using it. And the chances are, if you're using it, you're probably using it as a healer, so you're taking life wave anyways. Yeah. Next is Plague Egg. Plague Egg is kind of not great. The only difference between this and Marcus is that this gets access to better attacking skills, and it gets auto heal. So, like, it gets, like, in the early game, it gets Mana Shield, it gets Copy Shield, and it gets Protected Offense. So, by going second in the second slot, you have the ability to, like, get rid of some debuffs with Cleansing Flame, which helps. Apply weakness with this. You've got Hex, which is nice. You've got ways to apply a shield on the other party members for a protected offense, which is nice. You get double Hex by mid-game, plus you get Anti-Curse, plus you get Weaken. So this thing is great at applying weakness and just applying a bunch of debuffs. Unfortunately, its abilities suck. It gets Supremacy, which I don't think is very good, and its other one is possibly worse even, and that is Overheal, which is like, what the heck? So like if you have a healer, because it's an aura, so if you have a healer on your team, maybe Overheal is worth taking, just because it gives you some extra shield. But like, this thing's not really applying a whole lot of healing. I mean, it's in the utility section because it has the ability, if you choose so, for it to apply healing, and it can get rid of harmful stacks in doing so. It can apply random debuffs in doing so. But like with double Hex, multi-weakness, and Mana Shield, Copy Shield, Protected Offense, the chances are you're going to be clicking something that applies weakness, right? So, I don't know. Does it do a lot of damage? No. Is it good? No. So, are we putting it high up on the list? No, we're not. We're going to put it probably even below Marcus. And its typing is bad. Like, weak to water, strong to earth, that is bad. We don't like that. This thing will die to a ice spears or something. Setsune. So this monster is absolutely fantastic at level 42. Its power budget is so heavily skewed towards the late game that this thing is like, it's pretty bad in the early game or the mid game even. Like, it gets fantastic things. Buff Steal, that is fantastic. That is so good. Plus it gets Cleansing Sidekick and multi-sidekick. That is so busted. This thing is such a busted. If this gets randomized into a boss in like the early game, this thing is such a problem. It just steals all of your buffs. So if you have like a party that's passively applying buffs, which usually you want, when you face these things, that is a problem, because they will just take all of your buffs every turn, and then they're just sitting on full buffs, and they're doing a lot of damage because their stats do a lot of damage. And because it's master and it's a boss, their health, it doesn't matter that they don't have a lot of bulk, because they have a lot of bulk, because the game just gives them double the amount of health and whatnot. And because they're a boss monster, they have like times 20. I don't even know. But it gets Mass Restore and Critical Healing, right? So it gets Evasion, so you do want some crit on this. It gets Critical buffs, which actually is kind of nice because it's always stealing buffs. Well, in the late game. I mean, early game, this thing does nothing, right? You're almost just going to use this as like a cleanse, like cleansing flame, lightning slash, or like a damage dealer. Its typing is fantastic. Strong to fire, weak to earth. That is fantastic. But outside of that, like, what is this thing doing? It's clicking like mass restore. Or it's clicking like auto. It just doesn't do enough. It does nothing. Not until the late game, which by that point you're never gonna have this thing's like the maximum potential of this monster filled out in a Bravery master difficulty run, because the game's gonna be over long before this thing becomes good. But when you fight these things, they have access to their whole skill trees, and they're always a problem. And they're usually the monster that you always have to get rid of first. So buff mastery obviously is the ideal one to take here, but if you actually get this and are actually using it in the early game, the ideal one to take is not buff mastery, because there's no reason to take buff mastery on that until it gets buff steal. The ideal one to take is bleed out. Bleed out is it does something, right? Buff mastery on this thing does nothing because it's not really applying buffs until it gets this and this. But at least both of its attacking skills apply bleed, so bleed out at least does something. But I don't think the monster is very good in an actual playthrough. And it's a nightmare to play against because it is a good monster, and it's a great monster for PvP at max level. But in a playthrough, honestly, it does less than like any of these. But just as a pure, like even as a damage dealer, it does okay because its attacking stats are good. So we'll put it above the minor, but it does less than probably any of these. In fact, no, we'll move this guy down here. Yeah, we'll change it to this probably. Because Grummy, just by having Restoring Shield, that's why Grummy is here. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Okay, next is the Changeling. Changeling is like such a weird monster. It can do a lot of different things. It can be an attacker if you want it to be. Its stats are all completely averaged out, so they're all equal. Generally, if I ever get this monster, I'm using it as a utility monster for Restoring Shield, and that's pretty much it. Just Restoring Shield, and then combo generation with Arcane Bolt. I'm rarely ever using Slash, or clicking buffs. I mean, you could click the buffs. The buffs are worth getting anyways, because the passives here are worth getting. But it gets access to Observe, which is great, because when this monster spends a turn without attacking, which usually it is if you're building these trees out, then it just shields everybody, which is nice. Hexing support, which is nice. And usually when I have this monster, I put like the gray stone on it or whatever, like all the equipment that you can only use if you're not shifted. So that monster's pretty good for just not shifting. But if you do shift it, I mean that they're also like not, its options aren't great for getting shifted. Like debuff mastery is like that's more for if it's an attacker. Like if you're attacking and you're just trying to utilize the Hex passive. Or buff mastery, which is like, I mean, I would probably take this one, but it doesn't really have access to a lot of good buffs. So like what is it clicking? It's got power, so Might and Sorcery. So we can click Might and Sorcery twice. But then like, it's got assistance. I don't know. I don't know. And it can apply barrier in the mid game with restoring shield. Yeah, I'm not. I don't know, but I mean it gets good stuff, right? Like Warlock healing plus Encapsulate, plus most of these are sort of dependent on healing. Hexing support. I mean, you could build this monster however you want, and you can always just reskill him. So if you want him to be your last slot attacker and click slash, great. I generally don't do that. If he's clicking a move, he's clicking Arcane Bolt because it does the most hits and it generates the highest combo. But whatever. I mean, is he good? Yeah, he's actually pretty good. He's weak. His typing is not great. His typing is actually pretty bad. Like he resists debuffs and he's weak to neutral. That is very bad. I almost wish if those were swapped, this monster would be really good. But they're not. So is he doing a whole lot? Not really, but at least what he does, he has a way to provide. Like if you roll this monster, he can do something in a team because he fits so well into different roles, right? He could be your utility monster, or he could be your carry monster. If you really need one, chances are you won't need a carry monster. You'll have a better, like he only has neutral damage. That's terrible, but whatever. We'll put him bottom of where did I put him? B tier. Bottom of B tier seems fine. But then again, yeah. I don't know. Doesn't really matter. Next is Azarak. Okay, Azarak is busted. So here we are, we're looking at an S tier monster, and why is this an S tier monster? Because early game, he gets Concealed, plus Martial Prowess, plus ways to stack Blind, plus Cleanse. Early game Cleanse, early game Blind application, early game Concealed plus Martial Prowess, and Martial Prowess is an aura, so it's just a great way to start generating buffs in your team. Plus he gets Smokescreen, plus Healing, plus Warlock healing. Like, this monster is so busted, he has everything. The only thing he doesn't have is multiple damage types, but it doesn't matter because you're just gonna click neutral. Like, if your only damage type is neutral, but you're providing this much utility, like buffs for your parties, blind on the enemies, plus you're applying armor break, plus you get multi armor break, it's broken. It's busted. Plus cleanse, plus weapon break, so you're decreasing their crit chance per armor break. So they're getting with 3 armor breaks on them, they're getting minus 20% crit chance, which is fantastic. That is fantastic on some monsters. That is so valuable. Martial Prowess is so valuable. Smokescreen is so valuable when he's clicking Mass Restore, which a lot of the times he is. But sometimes once your buffs get going, like if you get lucky and your buffs get going well early, then this monster has the ability to just click Shadow Storm or Shadow Grasp. Once you get to the mid game, you're clicking Shadow Grasp or Shadow Storm. I mean, it doesn't even matter. Like you're like Shadow Storm is nice because this is like being able to apply blind on all of the enemies has a lot of value in this monster's case because of Martial Prowess. So I'll just read this out real quick. Whenever a monster in the party evades a hit, either by dodging or by blind, 70% chance that they gain a random buff. And I can tell you right now, when this monster's on your team, you're evading a lot of hits because of blind. So I don't even know. This is oh, plus his hold on, my freaking mouse doesn't want to work. I don't know why my mouse isn't working, but whatever. His typing is fantastic. Resist fire, weak to earth. That is so valuable that it is it's going in the S tier. 100%. It's going in the S tier. It's going above all of these, not quite above these two. It is so valuable, and when you fight against these things, they are a problem. They're another example of a monster where you have to take them out first, or you just can't attack them at all, because when you try to like attack them, they just get buffs out of nowhere. Like you hover over them and you're looking at like, I don't even know why they have so much dodge chance, but they're usually like, oh, it's because you always have blind on you, right? So they're 35 plus 8. So yeah, so they have 43% dodge chance, which is usually what they hover at. But it's only until you no longer have blind stacks on you, which is, I don't know. I mean, the goal with that monster is you're trying to stack as much blind as you can. Yeah, it's S tier for sure. Fumungus. Fumungus is pretty good. So it is the evolved form of the fungi. And are you gaining a lot by evolving it? Yeah, you are. One, you're getting access to neutral attacks. Now, eventually in the mid-game it gets Earth Allegiance, so it loses access to neutral attacks in exchange for ignoring Earth resistances, which can be nice, but it can also not be nice if you're looking at a monster that is weak to neutral, because then suddenly you don't have neutral damage. But it gets Mass Restore, which is why this is in the utility section. It also gets Weakening Shield. So this thing could just straight up be a support. I forgot about this skill, but this thing could be a support. In the mid game, this thing could very well just be your support. It gets Multi-Weakness as an aura, which is great. Poisoning Soil, which is cool. A Spore Cloud, which is great. Or just Spore, I mean, it doesn't even matter, but I would probably take Spore Cloud on this, because as a single target Earth, you have access to these, which this is effectively a single target Earth move once you get Earth Allegiance. So it's got some debuff removal, so it's got access to a bunch of good stuff. It can be built however ways you need it. Its typing is pretty bad, weak to fire, strong to earth. Doesn't matter, it's high enough stat mon that that's fine. Its ability is Supremacy, and its other one is Cursed Chain. Honestly, on this monster, you're probably going to want to take Cursed Chain, just because it has multi-weakness plus Weakening Shield. So when you click Weakening Shield, to be able to spread the weakness is pretty crucial. So you're going to want to take Cursed Chain, probably. Yeah, Cursed Chain is good. But that alone is super high value. I'm trying to think. Multi-weakness is so good. Plus all of its other stuff. I mean, it does everything. It does just about what all of these do. Just it does a little bit more. It just doesn't apply buffs, right? So this applies buffs. It doesn't do that, but it's removing. It has ways to remove debuffs. It has ways to cleanse buffs from enemies. It has ways to apply multi-weakness, which is more valuable than multi-poison, so we're going to put him up here. He has Weakening Shield, so he's going to go above Visuki, and he is going to go above Garulu as well, probably. In fact, yeah. Yep, that's it. And the only reason Garulu is this high is because of aging. It has access to aging. And I don't actually know why. Oh, leadership. The Beetleoid is up here because it has access to revenge and leadership, which is fantastic. So, yeah, so that's where the Fumungus is gonna go. Which seems that seems fine. Where is my next one? Alright, so we got 3 left. We will look at the Tar Blob. So this is the last slime, or blob. Now, he's almost kind of built like a carry, sort of. But he gets... because he gets a bunch of damaging actions. But the reason he's in the utility section is because he gets Restore, which gives single target debuff removal, which is nice. And he gets Life Wave, which is nice. Well, it can be. It's not as nice as Restore, but it can be okay. Outside of that, he probably will be attacking. He gets mid-game aging, he gets multi-poison and multi-burn, plus Tri-Mage healing, which is nice, and it sort of pairs into just clicking restore over any of these, really. Like, you just click restore, plus Tri-Mage healing, and you're just stacking burns, stacking poisons. Great. That's great. Gets transfusion, but he does get recuperate, right? So if you want to take recuperate, you want to build him as an attacker, you can. He gets claws, he gets coal toss. That's nice. He gets critical burn, which is nice. And he gets tether application, which is nice. And then in the late game, it doesn't really matter, but the late game he gets Eons and Primal Rage, and his typing is not good, and his stats are not great either, and his damage application is just Earth and Neutral, so it's not great. So this monster usually doesn't really... Honestly, this monster does better if you just build him as a Restore plus Tri-Mage healing into multi-burn, multi-poison. He usually does better than if you're trying to make him an attacker. But if you get him to the late game, then maybe with Primal Rage plus Aeons, he can be an attacker. But then in the late game, he also gets critical healing, so... I don't know. But he doesn't get critical boon or critical mass, so critical healing really doesn't matter on this guy. It only matters for recuperate, which... whatever. So, I mean, what is he doing? I would say he's adding more value than probably any of these, actually. Pretty much this entire row, he's adding more value. We forgot to check his shifted abilities. So he's got Overheal, which, again, that honestly lends him to just being a healer. Or he has... oops, it's not what I want. Or he has... which debuff variety, which I don't know. Both of these are kind of bad, but you could also find utility for for both of these abilities, so it's whatever. They don't really add a whole lot to his kit. Yeah, his typing I already talked about, it's not great. But yeah, just by definition of Tri-Mage healing plus restore plus multi-burn, multi-poison, he's already has a way of doing more than any of this row. So we're gonna put him almost at the top of this row, just for that reason. And okay, so here we go. This monster is one of my favorite monsters. It is so broken. So this thing is fantastic. So, okay, so let's see. What does he do? This row doesn't really do much. You're building this row, this tree out for the passives, right? Eventually. He gets access to Channeling Sustain. Great. Multi-channel. Great. Plus he gets, like, regeneration and eventually becomes more channel. So, like, you're going to want to click. This is sort of a buff that you might want to click because it has channel. He has, in the early game, he has access to a signature attacking ability. So in the past, I said that the crab was the only monster in this game that gets a signature attacking ability. That apparently is not true, because Sap Splatter is a signature attacking ability that also heals your entire party for a set amount, plus magic. So that plus Sticky Impact. Tether is pretty weak. Like, the Tether debuff, or it's not a debuff, but whatever. It's a harmful action. It doesn't really... It really doesn't do a whole lot. But it does something, right? And anything that does something is worth considering. But basically in the early game, he's clicking Sap Splatter, and while clicking that, he's getting rid of debuffs on your team. And because this is also a healing action, he's using bolster, so he's just applying one buff to your whole party by clicking Sap Splatter. He's getting rid of 2 buffs from one of your party members, and he's regenerating mana via Sap Splatter and via Channeling Sustain. And he also has anti-curse. So it is fantastic. This monster is so good, and he gets mana potential, which I think is better just because it adds a little bit more damage to this monster, and it adds a little bit more damage reduction. His typing is really bad. His typing is the one letdown, right? He's weak to fire, strong to earth. You're gonna want to stack mana and mana regen on this guy. And then in the mid game, he gets multi-weakness, which is as an aura, it might not even be worth taking sometimes, unless you have another monster on your party that can apply weakness, because he's very rarely clicking Sonic Wave. Most of the time, he will be clicking Sap Splatter because it adds a buff with bolster. It buffed your party. So that's all he's doing. He's healing his entire party by attacking, and he's buffing his entire party by attacking, and he's getting rid of debuffs by attacking. And that's pretty much it. We can look at what his other ability is, see if it's worth considering. I highly doubt that it is. It is heal charging, so I mean, if you really need charge stacks on your team, heal charging can be worth, I guess. Because let's look at what this skill does. So, where is it? So this skill is healing everyone 3 times. And then at max level, it's healing everyone 4 times. So you're giving everyone on your party 3 charge stacks in the early to mid game. Which is okay, I guess. I still think mana potential is better because this monster has such good utility that you want to keep it alive. And mana potential adds to that ability to just give it a little bit more damage reduction. This monster does a whole lot. It adds a ton of value to your party. It can be fit into almost any party because all it does is heals and adds buffs. So it's going to be above Beetleoid for sure, probably below Orumtail, just because it's a healer and not a shielder. They effectively do the same things, but Orumtail is a shielder and not a healer, which is better. So, yeah. Yeah. So, our last monster in the utility section, which arguably should be a support. I forgot about this monster in the support section. But whatever. Doesn't really matter. It has access to shield. So the entire early game you're gonna probably, unless you have another pure support, and this monster it could be your your second slot utility monster. But it has shield, right? So what are its abilities? Mana Conflux. Throughout combat, gain a charge stack for every... So it passively gains charge stacks just by playing the game and spending mana. That's cool. Its other one is... I think it's Holy Presence. Yeah, so it's Holy Presence. So honestly, Holy Presence might be better. It probably is better. It probably is better. So let's find out here just by looking at its skills and seeing how much access does this thing have to generating charge stacks itself. So this thing's defense stat is crazy high, so its shield value is incredible. It has load up, which doesn't really matter because load up doesn't apply a lot of shields, it just applies singular big shields. Same with Barricade. Barricade's not great. As a physical attacker, this thing gets access to like to like nothing. It gets access to Burrow. So it gets one physical attacker, and most of it's, yeah, like unless you want the barrier buff, you're not going to be clicking Burrow. What you're going to be doing with this monster is you're going to be clicking Shield, and then in the mid game, this monster gets Revenge. Plus it gets Magnetized, which means that there's a 15% chance that this monster will take attacks by monsters that have shock on them, which this monster is incredible. Just by having Electric Field, that's an incredible way to apply shock. Monsters will have a lot of shock, plus multi-shock. So when monsters attack anyone on your party, a lot of the times they will be attacking this monster. So by the mid game, when this monster gets access to Revenge, it has an excellent way of generating charge stacks for itself. And then it gets access to Supercharge. So once this monster gets 15 or more charge stacks, its magic gets increased by 100% of its attack. So suddenly this monster goes from being like a mostly physically oriented mixed attacker to just a straight up very powerful magic attacker. To the point where this is what I said, you're never going to be clicking Burrow. You're going to be clicking Shield most of the time until this monster has over 15 charge stacks, and you can weave in, probably not Thunderstorm, you're probably going to weave in either Bitumen Surge, which is a multi-target effect unfortunately, but it's still okay, or Piercing Light, which is surprisingly pretty good because it gives like some like defense ignore, like some defense penetration, which is good, and it's a magical attack. So it gets access to Earth and Wind magic. Its typing is not great. It's weak to water, strong to wind. But again, when you're this bulky, you just stack defense. Or no, you don't stack defense. You stack health, mana regen. This monster will need mana regen. And I guess defense and health, and then you'll have like health and mana regen, and then you'll have like probably either defense and mana regen, probably, just for the extra shield value. Then this monster can just turn around every other turn and just hit for big magic damage. That is value. That is value. I forget where we placed the Goblin Pilot, but this monster is essentially the exact same as the Goblin Pilot. He just has slightly better typing, because the Goblin Pilot was weak to water and wind, strong to fire and earth. This monster is only weak to water, strong to wind. So he's already better, and so we'll keep him in this row right now. So what do most of these monsters do? Most of these monsters are not doing damage, right? The only exceptions being Garulu and Famungus, so this monster is providing shielding, which in itself is like a B tier ability, but then it also has ways to generate charge stacks itself, which is good, and then it has ways to do really big magic damage, like every so often, which adds a lot of value. So I'm tempted to put him behind Garulu right there. I feel like the Goblin Pilot probably went into like B tier or possibly low A tier. So we'll do the same thing for him, but he is slightly better than the Pilot at that same job. And that's the tier list for the remaining monsters of this Monster Sanctuary series of tier lists. So this is the utility section. We've got Slime and Ninki Naka at the top. That is no surprise because those monsters are incredibly busted. If I can figure out how to not ruin that. They provide so much value just by existing. And for this guy, he has so much debuff removal. And pretty much every monster in the top here is just like either unique in some sense, like Ninki Nonka, early game restoration, that is very unique to Ninki Nonka. Ice Blob, early game congeal and multi-chill, that is very unique. Is the only monster in the game to get that. Orumtail, early game glitter plus gold sense, that is the only monster in the game to get access to that. This monster, early game martial prowess, only monster in the game to get access to martial prowess pre-20. Amberegla has a signature healing attacking skill, which is fantastic. And Beetleoid, which is like a leadership charge generator. So like if you can generate charge stacks and you have leadership, you have a lot of value for the team. Similar to Targo. This monster is basically similar to Targo. He's doing the exact same things. And that's it. That's the tier list. So thank you guys very much for being patient through this entire thing. And I hope that you guys, for the most part, agree with where monsters ended up being. If you guys disagree and Blob is your favorite monster in this game, then by all means you are welcome to write paragraphs about how I am not qualified to make tier lists for this game, which I am not. But I've played enough Bravery runs and won enough Bravery runs to think that I am. So there you go. And again, this tier list does not apply to PvP. This tier list has almost zero validity to monsters once we are talking about level 40 plus. This is mainly for progression through the base game on master difficulty from levels 1 to basically 30. We're not even really considering 30 plus for most of these monsters because the game only lasts until usually like level 35 if you're trying to be diligent and get through it quick. So that's that. Thanks for just chewing through that whole thing. A lot of these videos were long, but the carry video was like 3 hours, so sorry about that, but there was too many to not make it 3 hours. So hopefully this one is shorter, and I will see you guys probably never, unless I come up with another tier list for a different game to do. So peace.